Hey everyone, what is going on? And happy holidays. I hope you're all doing awesome. Today I want to talk to you all about T4 ability upgrades, specifically the ones I have upgraded and regret doing. Not all of them are ones I regretted immediately, but some kind of were, and some were ones I didn't entirely know how they worked before I did it. So I hope this helps you guys a bit, at least in the ones I personally upgraded and wish I could take back, since we all know how important T4 ability upgrades are and how much they can be for your roster. So without further ado, let's get this video started. Alright, and so here is the top of my roster here. Now, this isn't going to be in any particular order, so let's start off the show here with Red Skull. So this is going to be for Red Skull's passive. Now, admittedly, he does have some good T4 upgrades, but Red Skull is a bit of a laughingstock now in the face of Baron Zemo, and even before, a lot of people were using Black Bolt quite easily to take down Red Skull teams, so unfortunately, you had to build this team up quite a bit to be effective, but to level, so many Hydra minions was quite a bit of a chore, and I did this for a while, but then I stopped at some point, and I do want to point out that if you have Red Skull but haven't leveled his minions, I would just throw him in an offensive team with Baron Zemo, and he can work quite well too. So here we are for the passive here, for that increase, 5% speed for self and Hydra minions. That being said, speed is really important to the game, so 5% doesn't sound like much, but it is actually pretty good, but it's just the fact that I don't really use this team too much anymore, and I kind of stopped leveling them up. 5% damage is okay, but this is largely for the speed, so it's okay, but I kind of wish I could take those back. So moving on, and then this is actually very similar to Red Skull. Let's find it. Where can I find him? So Hydra Sniper. Hydra Sniper's passive specifically, since we just talked about Red Skull, I have to talk about this one too. On the surface, it's actually a pretty decent T4 here because, like I said, speed is king, and this improves the speed of the entire team, even outside of war, actually. But unfortunately, I really don't make use of this very much anymore, and more T4s I wish I could claw back because the Red Skull minion team just isn't as great as it used to be, and actually, to be honest, it was only good for a little while. So they didn't get very long in the sun, I guess you could say, before it got outclassed, and now that Baron Zemo's out, it's even worse. Makes me wonder why Red Skull was held back so long from farmability, I think on the level of 8 months, because really it wasn't as OP as people made it seem. So moving on, of course, now let's do something that might be a bit surprising. So we're actually going to look at Ebony Maw here. Now, I kind of regret doing this in the short term, and this is Ebony Maw's passive. For anyone who wasn't or isn't aware, this used to have a different text, and I believe suggesting that you get a 30% increase. Is to do with this bottom bit here. So you get a 30% increase in resistance for the Black Order on top of what it was supposed to be. So here on the level 5 passive, it says gain plus 10% resistance. Black Order and Thanos allies gain plus 10% resistance. I'm pretty sure it actually originally said plus 30%, and there was some text error. This was, I believe, able to be refunded by support because of the misleading text that was eventually changed. I never did get this refunded, and I guess long-term in Arena, I probably made use of this now, but 10% isn't a huge chunk versus what was advertised, so I kind of wish I did get this refunded, even though, I probably would have gotten it later down the line because we know Black Order is king, but it didn't make a lot of short-term impact that I probably could have used somewhere else. On to the next one, of course. Let's see, where are we going to go next? So that is Punisher. Punisher's passive. A lot of these are going to be passives, but not all of them. Unfortunately, this only applies to him with the Defenders team, which I only use for Blitz. So if Daredevil is an ally, when an enemy attacks him, attack that enemy for 200% damage. Now, this is an increase of 40% damage over the other levels, but the reason why I got this, it's hard, you can't actually see it here, but it's down, where is it? Actually, it's at the top here. So basically you get an extra 20% chance on non-attack abilities per defender ally. So basically, if you have this T4, anytime someone uses a non-attack ability, it's a 100% chance to assist with Punisher for an extra attack. So this was actually quite good in the Defenders team, but I really don't make use of this anymore. I barely use Defenders, like I said, other than Blitz Sim now. I don't really use them in Alliance War much anymore. I wish I could refund this specifically so I could put it back into the Ultimate and Special, which will be required for the new Skilletary or Skill Military team, which I do plan on to leveling and gear eventually when Rin Guardian and Yelena come out, but unfortunately this team is a bit heavy on T4 consumption, so not that this is really part of the video, but in order to do that for Punisher, you do need to get the ultimate here for the extra attack, for Skilletary, and the grenade launcher one as well, the clear buffs or transfer buffs or whatever. So yeah, I wish I could claw back the passive to put it somewhere else. And now on the same sort of, since we're talking sort of about defenders, we're going to talk about Iron Fist here, and this is Iron Fist passive. So, and it's kind of funny actually now that we go back. So my Iron Fist is only tier 10. Normally when I T4 characters, I'm pretty heavily invested into them, gear 12 plus, that kind of thing. But since, that really shows that you're planning on investing in them. Similarly to Punisher, I did this back when the defenders got a rework, and I was using them in Ultimate 6 for a while pre-BKT. It's just that I never really got around to gearing them past that, which seems like a bit of a waste now to T4. Actually, the 10% chance to heal does seem pretty low compared to a lot of characters nowadays who have much better passives or heal amounts. He wasn't bad for his time, and he's still okay now, but definitely not worth investing any of your T4s into the defenders, in my opinion, anymore. And again, since we're talking about older characters, we can't go anywhere without talking about RACCOON. One of the best blasters, probably about a year and a half ago. He's still not too bad. I think I upgraded this, quite some time ago when I used Rocket and Groot together, when I used them through Dark Dimension 2. That's why he is tier 13 now. That is not something I would recommend nowadays. But yeah, the special and alt actually wasn't too bad. I believe there was some text bug again with the Rocket special that allowed to get refunded, because I believe it was supposed to assist an additional chance by 100%, and there was again some text errors there where it was actually only 70% chance instead of 100%. So this from an extra random ally rather. So this was kind of annoying. I didn't end up getting this refunded either because I was using Rocket so much that I decided to keep it for the extra damage. And then again, I put T4s into the ultimate because it was so hard hitting at the time. But nowadays, so 30% extra damage, that's not great. It's 40% if you have Groot, but even still, a lot of characters, newer characters these days, for an alt, you probably get anywhere from like 50 to 70% damage increase on an alt. So it wasn't as much as I definitely wouldn't use it now. We also need to talk about Groot, because Groot is on the list, which I forgot to add to my favorites. So let's go and find Groot here. And we'll talk about why here. Specifically is the Groot passive. Now, I think I upgraded again over a year ago, which got me through Dark Dimension 2, because I was using him as a 5th character support. And the interesting thing part of that, it's not the revive part, it's actually, but when Groot is attacked, always apply slow to attacker for 1 turn. So if any AoE attacks went off and splashed onto Groot, it would have a chance to slowing them. Unfortunately, I believe Groot's focus actually isn't that great, so he has a hard time applying the slow. Kind of wish I could pull the T4s off from this now, and it's very similar to Star-Lord actually. Star-Lord's blind, for example. We're not talking about him right yet, but his focus is quite low for landing his blind 2 on a special. Now, talking about specials, of course, scroll back up here, and I did have this one favorited properly, and that is going to be Falcon. So I did the Falcon special, which is Red Wing here. Part of me thought this was a plus 5% speed bar per enemy with a positive effect. So here you get 30% and then plus 10% for each enemy with a positive effect. It's actually 25%, but then I got the T4 and then it went to 30%. I thought it was going to be 25% plus 15% for each enemy with a positive effect. I guess that would have been too OP and way too much speed bar, but that's how I thought it would work, and apparently I didn't look this up beforehand before actually investing in this, so definitely a bit of a waste, I would say, because it's just a flat 5%, and that doesn't do a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, but if it was 5% per character, that could have been, a crazy ton more, so definitely a regrettable one for me here. Now, again, more tech characters, but Star-Lord, just in general, I think I over-invested T4s into him. I won't say, I didn't get a lot of use out of him at the time, but due to red stars, he never really scaled all that well compared to some of my other characters. Also, the T4s on his special particularly isn't amazing. Like I said, it has a chance to blind a third target, but his focus is so poor he often isn't able to actually land it. The T4s in his ultimate was just an attempt to raise his overall damage, because I was using him a lot in that BKT, and that's all you really get out of it. But for a character, that's dropped really off the ladder and is almost maxed in T4s, I wish I could claw a lot of these back and put them elsewhere. And speaking of more old characters, Yondu. So Yondu's passive, Centauri Hunter, I'm pretty sure from the get-go this was bugged, or the conditions of the passive was not very well known. Basically, when T4s first came out, people were under the impression that Yondu would steal from characters who had positive effects, who actually had positive effects. Turns out that he chose characters at random, and if they did have positive effects, he would take them. this random enemy text rather, was kind of implemented much later because there was a lot of confusion around this, and I believe they ended up co-opting this text a bit for Mr. Fantastic, who does something similar for clearing positive effects as well. That being said, they did offer a T4 refund for Yondu, and I definitely should have taken that again because I don't use him anymore, but he did have his time in the sun like 2 years ago, I think. Make Ravagers great again, bring someone out that'll, make them good. They only have 4 characters also, so I don't know what they plan to do, if anything, with this team. And finally, the very last character that I do want to talk about is Shield Assault. I guess this was when Alliance War first came out, and I wanted to beef up my shield team, and I felt that the 10% crit on the passive, was quite substantial. And don't get me wrong, it can be, because crits for shield allies often means decrease in turn bar or just more damage overall. With the introduction of ISO 8 classes like Raider, though, that improves crit already, and it makes this passive really underwhelming. I believe Raiders can increase crit up to 25% chance, whereas this is 10% for a T4, so, when you get this just for, like, level 1 Raider, it almost doesn't make sense to pick this up anymore. So, this was probably one of the more regrettable ones, mostly because of what we know now with ISO 8s and things like that. And, that's the end of the list of T4s that I invested in that I really wish I could take back, especially now when there's so many other places that I could have put them. And I'm really curious about your guys' T4 investment, though. Is there any that you all did that you also wish you could take back? There's tons of awesome ability upgrades out there with limited resources, so be really careful with the upgrades that you choose to do, since you might wish you still had them for another character later. Really consider the long-term impact of your character that you put those oranges into before you actually do it. So I hope this video was helpful, or at least made you laugh at some of my mistakes in the past. And of course, this is the end of the show, so until next time guys, stay safe, and I'll see y'all later. Boilon signing out.